What is up, guys? We have made it to Tuesday. It is 8 o'clock. It is time for the canceled Misfits show. I'm so happy you made it. I think we have a great show tonight. You know, we actually have good news for once. Look at that. I can do good news. And I think that, it's time for sure after everything we've been going through. So, yeah, let's jump right on into the show. So, guys, I'm going to be completely honest with you today. I had my second COVID shot. I can already feel myself getting sick again. So, you know, if I start to meander, just stick with me. I'm sure I will get to a point sooner rather than later. Also, some great news. I've been hinting that I've had something in the works. And it actually just came out yesterday. So, if you have not seen or heard yet, I was on the Truth Network's Christian's Perspective with Chris Hughes. We talked about transgenderism. It was awesome. I loved it. It was a great show. It's worth watching. It is on my Facebook page, the Canceled Misfits Show, over on Facebook. It is definitely worth going over to. This right here is what it looks like. And it's definitely worth watching. I don't really know why I'm promoting. He definitely has quite a bit bigger following than me, but it's definitely, I listened to many of his podcasts getting ready for it, and the only thing I can say is that he does a fantastic job. He has great guests worth watching. So, you know, week in and week out, I always start these shows with bad news. You know, in the world we live in, it piles up over the week, and when I go to brainstorm and write these shows, that's really what I see. There's very little good news in this world, especially for conservatives and Christians who are fighting an uphill battle, which is why I'm very, very happy to start out with this headline. So, America's biggest children's hospital to stop gender-affirming therapies for kids. Guys, this is a win. This is a win that we haven't seen in a while. It's a win for sanity and for truth. It's a win for us in politics. It's a win for us in the culture. And it's something politically that we can get excited behind moving into the midterms. Also, if you consider yourselves part of the grand old party, you're going to have a very good time this November. But let's dive in and see why it is such a win. Because it is very much a win. Following Texas Governor Greg Abbott's directive for the state to investigate whether some transgender procedures on kids constituted child abuse, a pediatric hospital in Texas has announced that it will stop performing gender-confirming therapies for children. Texas Children's Hospital, America's biggest pediatric hospital, made the announcement on Friday, saying this move was aimed at protecting healthcare professionals and families. So the announcement came after Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott said that he was ordering Texas Department of Family and Protective Services to investigate whether so-called sex change procedures were child abuse. Yes, right off the bat. Very much so. We'll get into it, but absolutely. So first off, good on Governor Abbott to do something about this at a state level. In fact, one of the biggest states, obviously. I don't particularly care if he did it because so they're about to do a primary elections over there, and his conservative was calling it out. I don't care if he did this in response to it. It's a very big win. That's what we need to know about this, is that it doesn't really matter why. It's a good move. It's a move that required a bit of courage, and I hope his example is followed by other governors in their own state, especially here. Do this. You know, because Governor DeSantis can hear me from here. Someone has to protect these kids from the abuse they are being subject to. And don't get me wrong, this is abuse. It's mental and emotional abuse, for one, telling these kids who have not even begun to learn their identity that it is something other than reality, so that their identity does not match up with their reality. It's definitely abuse. we talked about this on the Christian Perspective, which you should go listen to. All right, when 41% of these people end up attempting to take their own life, it's time to realize that this is definitely abuse, right? I said it before. It's not that some people do not affirm, it's not that the fact that some people do not affirm their quote unquote, affirm their transition that kills them. Leftists like to say that we are oppressing them into killing themselves. That doesn't make sense. See, if that was the case, why wouldn't we see those same numbers in other oppressed groups throughout history? Why would we not see this type of number of suicides in slaves before the Civil War? Why would we not see this in Nazi Germany and the Jewish populations before they were rounded up and killed? There was plenty of time before they were actually rounded up and killed that they were being heavily oppressed. So why don't we see those same types of numbers there as here? Well, here's the answer. It's because even though that they were very wrongly oppressed, they were not living outside of reality. They were not living outside of truth. So they weren't killing themselves in the same numbers. But it's also physical abuse. As Governor Abbott put it, it's already against the law to subject Texas children to a wide variety of elective procedures for gender transitioning, including reassignment surgeries that can cause sterilization, mastectomies, removals of otherwise healthy body parts, and administration of puberty-blocking drugs or... Yeah, you can look this up. It's on the Daily Wire. It's a free ad, a free it's a free thing you can read. I tell you, I'm already starting to zone, but we're going to make it through this. But doses of testosterone or estrogen, Abbott said in a letter announcing the move to investigate. So I want to bring this to your attention in a way that it's not often talked about. Say you have a kid, many of you do. I want you to imagine this. Say that your 12-year-old daughter says that she feels transabled. Now that's a real thing. Thankfully, it hasn't gained very much attraction, but it is nonetheless has its proponents trying to legitimize it. And it's basically where, you feel like your identity is disabled. It's not very well thought through. But she tells you that she's transabled and that the only way to fully realize her actual self is she needs to have her arm cut off at the elbow because she feels like her identity is someone who doesn't have all of her left arm. Would you take her to a doctor and have him cut off her arm? I hope the answer would be, of course not. That would be child abuse. Practically no parent would do that, and the few that would are probably have already gotten in trouble for other types of child abuse. But change transabled to transgender, and thousands of parents are willing to take their 12-year-old daughter to have a double mastectomy, to pump her full of drugs so that an extremely important part of human development is delayed indefinitely, or to have their sons chemically castrated. How is this not abuse? I got into a Twitter argument and I finally just gave up on the dude because we could not agree that this was abuse. But how can it not be abuse when you're doing this? I'll let you decide if it's abuse or not, but it is. Someone please explain to me in the comments section how it isn't abuse. Please. If it's good enough, if it has any logic behind it, which I just don't see happening, but if it does, I'll do, a retort to it next episode. We'll see. So guys, this is a big win, and here's a quote that explains why this is such a big win. This is welcome news, but conservatives need to understand why it has happened. Texas Children's Hospitals didn't just decide to stop castrating children out of the goodness of their hearts. They were pressured by strong political leadership, American Principles Project President, say that 5 times fast, Terry Schilling told the Daily Wire. That's another thing, and this is a little bit of a rabbit hole, but why is it that Republicans don't want to use their power when they're in power? You don't see it happening. It's strange. So I'm glad that he is actually using the power that he has to, help children not have important parts of their body cut off. So that's really nice. So if I haven't mentioned it already, I don't know if I have. But there's an episode of The Christian Perspective with Chris Hughes that I was on. You should definitely go give it a listen. It's definitely a podcast worth your time. We talk a lot about transgenderism on that episode. And one of the questions he asked me was if this was going to get better, if the support would wane for it, if it would be less prevalent in the culture. And my answer was pretty simple. Yes and no. You see, nationwide, globally, I can explain that. Nationwide, globally, mainstream-wise, this will not go away. It preys too much on people's sense, especially young people's sense, of wanting to be unique, to stand out. And as a demonic spiritual warfare tool, it is way too strong of a weapon for Satan to use against very confused people. And so it will never disappear from our culture. Now that it started, it's one of those things where Pandora's box has been opened and we're not putting it back in. But there is hope, at least for small localities. And as I said, even up to possible states, this is proof of that. There is a chance to protect kids and even adults from this, but it involves people having the courage to stand up and say that these people that are confused and hurting and need the truth, lovingly and firm. They need the gospel, lovingly but firmly. It's up to churches to pray for and reach out to these people and minister to them, to love them, to be there for them. It's up to elected officials to say no when schools want to teach this to elementary school kids, middle school kids. It's up to elected officials to say no. It's up to parents to go and say, no, we will not have our children subjected to us. It is our responsibility to teach our kids sexual ethics. And it's up to governors to rightly say that this will be abused and prosecuted as such. That's another thing that really helps. So this is how you protect your family and your community. And it takes a lot of guts. But if we actually do it, we can protect the people that we love. So yeah, that's how that podcast ended. It's about an hour long and it's definitely worth listening to. You can find the link again on my Facebook page. It's the Canceled Misfits Show over on Facebook. But that's how we ended up there, and that's how I'm going to end the segment here, is by saying that it is up to you to fight this, to protect your kids. So I can't thank everybody who watches this so much for watching it. Do great things. If you liked it, if you haven't already subscribed, leave a comment down in this video. It just goes a long way to helping me grow, to try and reach more people. I have great things in the works. I'm reaching out to people, trying to get things going. And I just love it. Love doing this, love having it. Also, there's a little bell there, hit it. What that's going to do is cause a picture of me to be in your mind forever. And every time I release a new video, I will personally tell you in your own brain. So it might drive you crazy, but it'll be worth it. Also, I have the live chat up here for this video. So if you have any questions that you want answered, I actually really enjoy doing that. I don't have notes for those questions. So I love the challenge. Would love to talk to you about it. All right, I think that's enough of a transition. Let's get into our second story, which is that Florida passed a 15-week abortion ban. It's made it through the House and the Senate, and is expected to be signed by the governor shortly, which is awesome. This show, it's just a winning show. Both houses have passed House Bill 5, which limits most abortions after 15 weeks. There are a few exemptions. Of course, I'm not for the exemptions, but, well, let me get into it. Let's say. So according to Politico, the measure prohibits women from receiving abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, provides no exemptions for victims of rape, incest, or human trafficking. Existing Florida law restricts abortions after 14 weeks. So I actually have talked about this on the show. And here's what I had to say about this a couple of months ago. This year seems different. GOP lawmakers appear far more receptive to restricting abortion, even if they do not plan to pursue a Texas-style law that allows private citizens to sue abortion providers. The 6-week ban in the Texas law was part of early talks among Florida Republicans who wrote the new abortion bill, which I was hoping they would, make them even tougher than that. But lawmakers settled on the 15-week ban as the safest route to get around Roe and state privacy clause. The safest route. This is not an issue that we want to be safe on. This is an issue that we want to attack and attack relentlessly, because that's what leftists and abortion providers have been doing for the past 50-something years. I'm trying to do the math in my head. But I mean, with 63 million aborted babies so far? 63 million. Yeah, I think they've been pretty aggressive. We need to be as well. But of course, the Democrats are saying that this bill should be stopped. And I'm about to shock all of you. I almost agree with them. Now, hear me out. I've not gone woke. I promise. The bill does need to be amended, in my opinion. 15 weeks, that's 4 months. You're going to give someone 4 months to kill their... You say you're pro-life, but you're going to give someone 4 months to kill somebody. 4 months. Let's just... what if... Would you say that, someone runs into my truck, I have 4 months to hunt them down and kill them? No. And that gives me more cause to go shoot someone than a mother killing her baby. So what sense does 50... There's no moral reason to say, let's give them 4 months. If it's murder, it's murder. Why don't we just take it all the way to its logical conclusion and say, no, we're not letting you kill your child. We're not letting you kill this distinct individual human being. We're going to protect that baby. Or fetus, or whatever you want to call it. Clump of cells that will grow into a human eventually. And no, newsflash, after conception, it is already a human. This year seems different. GOP lawmakers appear far more receptive. The handsome guest I had on, definitely pretty good looking. No, I just, I see that and I'm like, wow, I really had a dark background back then. Hopefully I've grown a lot from that. I still stand behind this sentiment. Abortion is murder. It should be outlawed entirely. However, in the intervening 2 months or so since I recorded that, I can say that I have gotten a little bit of a new perspective on this, just thinking about it. I really do try to grow as I do this show. I try not only in production value, but also in content value. So I try and grow, and I think our end goal still should be zero abortion. I am not changing that. That is where it should be. That is mandatory that we get it there. It should not be legal for any reason. Not if something bad led to this for the mother. As tough as those situations may be, I'm not trying to take away from that. But that's not a valid reason for murdering someone, especially a complete 100% innocent. Not for the so-called life of the mother situation. If the pregnancy is killing the mother, you can cesarean the baby out of there and still attempt to save that baby's life. You don't have to take the drastic measure of clamping down on the baby's body parts and tearing it to shreds. If you make a good faith effort to save the baby's life and he or she still dies, it's still a tragedy. I am not arguing that. But it's not a moral sin. Clamping the baby's body parts and tearing it to shreds would be. But I digress. When it comes to this bill, I hope and pray that instead of an endgame, this is just a stepping stone. I hope and pray that the Supreme Court does the right thing and returns power to the states to control and limit abortions. And I hope and pray that if that happens, that courageous pro-lifers out there are ready to step up and do the right thing, to put an end to this brutal practice that has ended 63 million babies, I almost said billion, 63 million babies nationwide. That is people being elected who refuse to listen to the kill your baby crowd. That's what it's going to take, because if the power gets returned to the states have to decide, hey, we're not letting this happen. And some states will still do it. California, I'm sure, New York, all those liberal areas. But places like here, where Republicans are in control, you got to have the courage to do it. Also, I want to talk about the 63 million babies for a second. I actually did a little bit of searching. I want to put some numbers. These are from hawaii.edu. It's kind of an older article, but I still think it proves the point I'm trying to put, which is to put 63 million murders in perspective, just from the 20th century. So in Soviet Gulag state, killed 61,911,000. So 73, we've killed 63 million, maybe more if it's sped up. The communist China killed 35,236,000. So do we really want to be worse than China here? Nazis killed over 15 million people. Is that who we want to, do we want to break their record on human rights violations? You know, these are terrible events from terrible times, and we surpass it all. All for the, this one made me mad during the State of the Union, all for maternal rights, as it was so sickeningly called. So, I don't even know how America can call for, you know, other people out for human rights violations right now. I mean, we should, but I don't see how we can, as we've killed 63 million babies and have done very little as a nation to rectify that. But yeah, be prepared for this to heat up over the next few months, because it will. So I've said it before, June is about when SCOTUS is expected to release their decision on the Dobbs versus Jackson case. If you don't remember that, that is the case basically trying to get the 15-week Mississippi abortion ban thrown out, to reaffirm that up until 24 weeks, you cannot cut it off. And it needs to go. It's should this go our way, be prepared to hear all of the arguments on how this hurts women, that the government is intruding on their bodies, how we're going backwards instead of forwards, and do not believe them. The only way this hurts women is by making them responsible for their actions. And before you come at me, let me explain two things. One, women who were raped did not choose this. I'm not making that case. That being said, just because something so terrible is what caused this, it is still a human life and doesn't deserve to be killed. Also, this is an exceedingly rare event, and it should not be driving the debate as a whole. So whenever someone tries to make that case, one, you have to stand up and say, it's terrible, it's awful, it should not happen. But it's still a baby. And two, that statistically it is very rare and should not just drive the discussion as a whole. Secondly, and on here we have said this, I think from episode number 2 of the show, you can go back and fact check me, probably be over on Facebook. And that is that fathers have just as much responsibility to the child as the mother does. They do. This is something that practically all conservatives agree on, and probably would love to actually work on, you know, instead of government paying people to have, you know, babies out of wedlock, because that happens. This would be something we'd love to work on, except that first we have to get to the point where babies aren't being slaughtered first. So if you firmly believe that fathers are just as culpable in taking care of their baby as the mother is, hey, join us in the fight. Join us in that fight to end abortion, because then we can work on that problem. Be ready when this all goes down, because you will see an increase in people who just can't admit that they are wrong. And so they have to double down. They have to shout their abortions and take abortion pills on live TV because they cannot say that they were wrong. And what were they wrong about? Well, originally the whole purpose was that abortions were going to be safe, legal, and rare. I was born in the mid-90s, and I've heard that argument several times. They're supposed to be safe, legal, and rare. That is out the door. That is gone. 63 million babies later, that is gone. Safe, legal, and rare. First of all, how is it safe for the baby who dies in 100% of successful procedures? It just doesn't make sense. But then again, to those people, babies aren't alive, and that's just a monumentally stupid comparison to make. They said that they weren't, which it's my notes right now. It's like I wrote this thing. They said they weren't alive, which is just an absolutely ridiculous claim on its head. But now we have the technology to see the faces in the womb. They're babies, guys. We know that they feel pain. They are alive. Viability, or the ability for the baby to survive outside the mother's womb, continues to work backwards as medical science continues forward. They are alive from conception. But people can't admit they are wrong. They cannot. So instead of letting go of their pride, throwing ash on their head, and begging for mercy, they defend a morally abominable court ruling with even more fervor, pouring gasoline on the fires of their passion, doubling down on their wickedness. So be ready, because this topic is going to be at the forefront yet again very soon. See, you have to know what you believe. You have to know why you believe it. You have to be able to give a defense and be ready to vote. Because this is a non-presidential election year. And that generally means lower turnout. So it's actually easier, if you get fired up about something, to put people in who believe the same as you do. Just hint, hint. Also, it also goes very well for us because whoever is not in power in the White House generally makes up strides. So this is really the time to really, really vote. So, like I said, guys, I love doing this. You can leave your questions here. I would love to answer them. Again, like, subscribe, leave actual comments. It is worth it. It helps me. I love doing this. I want to get a little bit bigger. I have a lot of stuff in the works. Like I said, I'm making contacts out in the area. I think I have some good things coming. You just got to be ready. We'll see what happens. So, last week during the third segment, we talked about valor. We talked about how personal courage and bravery, sometimes in the face of overwhelming odds, sometimes in the case of fatal odds, is needed if we are going to stand for moral truth, to be a spokesperson for the right thing. This time I want to talk about another big idea, but a much more self-reflective one. I honestly, I really like that I rotate these third segments out, because it can be really anything. I think it keeps it fresh. So I'm really glad that we did this. But I want to talk about a self-reflective big idea. Every week we talk on here about things that we rightly should be upset about. Some things are evil, some are from pure human wickedness, and some are demonic, satanic ideas straight from the pits of hell. Having an after-school Satan club, for instance. I don't know if I'll ever be able to say that without laughing. But there is a big idea here that we all miss from time to time, sometimes altogether. Now, I know that this is something that even I don't even think about often enough. Especially researching these stories, I get just as angry at these people as you who hear it do, probably more so because I just see so much of it in and out. But there's something we need to remember about that. This is very important. I need you to, I'm coming into the camera. I need you to come into your screens, because this is something very important that we need to discuss here. See, all these people that we talk about, all of these absolutely horrendous stories everything that there is to just be furious about. That could be us. They are all part of the There But For the Grace of God Go I Club. See, ever since the fall of man, evil has pervaded our hearts. You don't even have to be particularly religious to see that. I mean, just look around at the world right now. One honest look should be more than enough to prove that evil is truly the default setting of our species. That it is our very nature. That if we want to fight against it, it is a long, hard, lifelong process of concerted effort needed to defy that base nature that is, at its heart, sinful. Which brings me to the people I talk about week in and week out. All of these stories that rightly upset us. The teachers, the school board members who want to push gender ideology on kids, the women, as we discussed, who just can't let go of their pride, instead choosing to very publicly stand and start screaming to shout your abortion, and taking abortion pills on live TV. We saw that just a couple of weeks ago. The 4th grade teacher who runs a satanic temple. Just to name a few of the stories we've talked about. These people are objectively evil, doing objectively evil things, giving in to their base nature, because that is what humans have. And here's the thing. We would be right there with them if not for the grace of God. You think I'm not kidding. As evil as they are, there's one positive thing that we can say about them. They are a mirror that we can look into our own soul to see what we would be like without God, or at very least without following rules and guidelines laid out by godly men. For instance, we should be thankful we were born in America. If you're watching this from outside of America, just realize we in America should be thankful we were born in America. You see, there are lots of reasons that makes this country truly great. Probably the biggest two throughout our history is our Constitution. The foundation for the running of our country was founded by Christian men. You see that all throughout their public and private writings. See, these men were imperfect. These men had flaws. They definitely were not without sin. But they were able to create a country that, until recently, continually got better. Yes, we had slavery. Slavery was abolished. And even though it took a little while, we enshrined the words in our Constitution to make sure that every man was equal. Compare that to the rest of the world. Compare that to the child soldiers in northern Africa, to the Taliban that came back into Afghanistan when we left, to the evils that they propagate. Tell that to the genocide of the Uyghur population in China. That's right. I can defend a Muslim population. See, when you do this, you see the same idea on a macro scale. That evil is found within the hearts of man, and that when nothing is there to restrain it, evil is all that you get. I think it's pretty obvious to see that this same evil is not prevalent here. It's the same way. Now, don't get me wrong, America still has lots of flaws. Saying that does not make me unpatriotic. Saying that does not make me a traitor to this country. Saying that makes me aware that this country has flaws and we need to fix them, starting with abortion. Because that is our great sin. But it's the same way on an individual level. Every person is responsible for the way they act. Every person will have to answer to God on behalf of what they have done. So when you listen to all these stories on here, remember that the only reason you aren't there is by the grace of God in your life. Just as last week, we had a call to action to be more courageous in the face of this evil. This week, the call to action is to have a desire to show these people the way of truth, which is the gospel. We could all be better at it, myself included, but develop that desire. Because if you don't, you'll have to answer for that too. So yeah, that was kind of eating at me kind of as I was writing the show. But it's very, I think, important that we understand that because we could be there, as I just made the point several times. So we're actually moving on. This show is going to be a little bit shorter. Like I said, it's not that I'm trying to rush through the show, more is the fact that it's more the fact that, you know, I got this shot in me. I'm kind of on medicine and they're, you know, starting to wear off. But I think it's been packed full. Just like the Christian Perspective with Chris Hughes, the episode we did aired yesterday. It was also packed full of good stuff that you should definitely give a listen to. I'm going to be one of those guys, aren't I? If I ever get like more than just a few subscribers, I'm going to be one of those guys who's just constantly pushing. All right. Last thing. We have a TikTok video, but it's not a cringy TikTok video. It's actually a very good TikTok video. It's a great TikTok video of a governor of the great state of Florida. And I'm going to talk about this more in the future. Hopefully, like I said, trying to build relationships, maybe have some people who have a different perspective on this come on and make it even better. But a little preview. If you haven't heard, there's a bill going through the Florida House and Senate that basically prevents K through 3 or third graders from having to, and honestly, I think that's a little light. It should be much higher, but K through 3, you can't talk about, you know, sexual identities and anything really sexual with them until after that point in schools, which is good because I don't think parents want to send their kids. I don't think most parents want to send their kids to talk about that in first grade when they are 6. And if parents do want to do that, probably shouldn't be parents. So yeah, we'll just watch this. We'll have fun watching it. It's Daddy DeSantis.
I want to ask you about the recommendation. Rights and education, what critics call the Don't Say Gay bill, is on the Senate floor.
Does it say that in the bill? Does it say that in the bill? I'm asking you to tell me what's in the bill because you are pushing false narratives. It doesn't matter what critics say.
Hold on. It says it bans classroom instruction on sexual identity and gender orientation.
For who? For grades pre-K through 3. So 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. And the idea that you wouldn't be honest about that and tell people what it actually says, it's why people don't trust people like you, because you peddle false narratives. And so we disabuse you of those narratives. And we're going to make sure that parents are able to send their kid to kindergarten without having some of this stuff injected into their school curriculum.
Oh, man. I gotta say, I love having him as our governor. Only reason I'd want to lose him is to the presidency. So, like I said, I don't have too much to say on this. I'm definitely going to talk about this more in the future. Again, hopefully with some great guests. But I do want to say this is, I love his fire on this. This is quickly going from the you know, the bill they're talking about to talking about DeSantis, which I have before. But that fire right there, that fire that he has, for all of you, all the people. So I say this quite often that I do not want Donald Trump to run for president again. I think his time is over. But I will say, I went to one of his rallies back in 2016 here in Tallahassee, and he was fiery. He was full of fire and passion, and he called out the media straight to their face. However, that same fire and passion, it worked against him when he was in office. So what you see here with Ron DeSantis is a lot of that same fire and passion, but it's tempered by the fact that he knows that to get stuff done, you can't just be combative. Now, he certainly was combative in this video, but it's not the same way. It's the same fire, but it's tempered to just the right point. And also, he was spot on. That is how you handle it when people say, you know, why do you want this to pass? Because I don't want kindergartners to go and talk about their sexual feelings towards each other or how they express themselves sexually. You don't want that with 5-year-olds. So, all right, if I keep going, I'm gonna wonder. So, thank you so much. I know it was a little short, coming about right on time. But anyway, you know, like, subscribe, and you know, I'm gonna cut up these videos, put it out over the week. Definitely rewatch the bits. Might give you great, you know, arguments to have when you're talking to people who doesn't like this. At the end of that, you can be like, you know, checkmate, try again later. Checkmate. Oh. All right, guys, have a great night. Have a great week. Hopefully I'm feeling much better next week. And hopefully we have Marcus back and maybe some other people. Who knows? Stay tuned. See you guys.